Pretty much most loan officers and real estate agents are probably gonna disagree with me on this point. That very first house that you get, if you're gonna live in it as your primary residence, it's not an asset yet. It's not. It's something that costs you money, so it's a liability. A lot of people get that wrong. A lot of people confuse buying that first house or living in your primary home. Yeah, this is an asset, this makes me money. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make you money because you have to pay a mortgage on it every month. That's literally the definition of a liability, something that costs you money. However, I will say this. With mortgages and when you get your very first home and home ownership in general, even when you live in it as your primary home, it creates options for assets. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the potentials and the opportunities that home ownership provides you. I know there's a lot of shit in the news right now about, home ownership is just, it's unaffordable, it's not, I don't know. Everyone's saying it's still cheaper to rent long-term than it is to buy a house. And I still do not believe that because I am living proof that it is something that can help you long-term. I remember my very first house that I bought, it actually dropped in value for the first few years because I bought during a down market. And so it didn't earn as much. I mean, it actually lost value the first couple of years that I had it. It was worth less than what I paid for it. So was that a dumb thing? Well, if I'd have sold it then, yeah, that probably would have been dumb. But no, I lived in it. I had to live somewhere, right? And so I just continued to do that for about 10 years is how long I ended up living in my house. And after 10 years, yeah, it had increased in value and it was kind of perfect timing for us to find our next house, which was this one. So even though that was the very first house that I bought was just kind of a shitty little house, to be fair, it was pretty nice. But at the time I remember thinking, this isn't what I want. This is just, it was a place to live. And I think that's where a lot of people just get tripped up with that first house because they feel like it needs to have everything, that you gotta have all the bells and whistles, you gotta have the granite countertops, you gotta have the perfect bathroom. Like, get all of that out of your head. Like, you just need to get into that first house. And even if it's a shithole, it will eventually increase in value, it will start to earn more money, and it will help you in the future. And it opens up additional options because real estate that makes money, the real assets, the millionaires of the world out there, the ones that did it, most of them did it through real estate. They didn't do it just by buying houses to live in. They bought houses to rent out. That is a cash flowing asset. If I can use some of the equity in my existing home to put as a down payment on another property that's gonna make me $500 a month, that is cash flow. That's making me money. Not to mention the fact that the house itself is still going to be increasing in value. The value of that home is just going up and up and up. So even though you're paying the mortgage on it, you're paying the mortgage balance down. So by the time you do decide to sell it, you have plenty of money that you're sitting on, and that opens up other options to actually create wealth for yourself. And so that's what's cool about homeownership. I'm a huge fan of it, and I'm tired of all the naysayers out there. But just know that very first house can make you tons of money if you do it right. And there's even ways to create assets in your existing home, even if you are living in it. So younger peeps out there, this is what I wanted to do. My original game plan when I bought my first house was to live in it, and I bought a 3-bedroom house, and I was gonna rent out the other rooms because, as you know, it's expensive to live in. Sometimes if you're young and single and you don't have anyone else, you just rent a room in a house, and you can do that for fairly cheap. You could rent $500-700. I don't know what they go for these days, but it was around $500 back when I was doing it. So if you did that, if your mortgage was $3,000, but you charged, $750 or $800 to every single person renting a room, and you got 3 of them in there, I mean, that takes up a good chunk of your mortgage. You'll still have something to pay, but now you get to use that to help pay your mortgage and create more money for yourself monthly. So just know that there are so many different options when it comes to home ownership and the creativity level, but it all comes down to that first house. Once you get that first house, then you can do all kinds of fun stuff. With this house, so I bought this house back in 2019. It's public record. Let's share real numbers. I don't care. I paid $650 for this house, and that was with the backyard completed because they had an option with this company that I was using to where you could finance the cost of a pool, and we really wanted a pool. So it was $650 total, all in with the pool. I did a pretty decent down payment because I made a good chunk of money from the last house that I sold. So that's a perfect example right there. I wouldn't have been able to buy this house as a first-time home buyer. There's no way I'd have been able to spend $650 out the gates. But because I bought that cheap little house first for $160K, And then eventually it got up to, I think the value when I sold it was like 250, it was like 225, 250. It really wasn't a lot. But I paid the loan balance down a good chunk. There actually was, I made a decent amount of money when I sold it, and I used that money for the down payment on this one with additional funds that I had saved up. And so that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. And that's just one example. That's what's called a move-up example. So that's when you're selling a house to buy another house, and you use the equity to do that. And there's lots of things you can do with that. So I've had other clients in the past where they're like, I want to sell my house and I want to put every last cent that I get, from selling it into the new one. And that's not always the smartest thing. Because if you do have other monthly expenses like car payments, student loans, credit cards, stuff like that, it might be smarter to just lower that overall cash flow or the overall expenses that you have, and then put some of it towards paying off debt and then the rest towards the down payment, or using some of it to buy the rate down, depending on the situation. So there's just lots of different things you can do when it comes to owning a home and the potential that you get with opportunities. The other thing is you can tap into the equity in your home while you still live there. That's something that I've done. I've pulled equity out of this house to buy another property so that it can make me money. So that's a real life example. I share things that I do that have helped make me money so that you guys can do the same thing. But like I said, it all starts with that first house. I've had this house, like I said, since 2019. It's 2024 now, so it's worth quite a bit more. I think last time we had a check that was like just under $1.2 million. And I've only had it for a few years. So that's the type of thing I'm talking about. And it is timing, right? Everything is timing. Right now, homes are more expensive, and I get that. And I'm empathetic to that fact. But I also think that people are just a little bit too, what's the word? Like they expect too much out the gates, especially the younger generation. Like I feel like such an old man when I say this, but this younger entitled generation, like they grew up in the houses that their parents took 2 or 3 houses to get to, and they think that their first time house is gonna have all of that stuff. Like it doesn't always work that way. Like if you've been successful and you're young and you're making tons of money, that's awesome. But most people aren't. Most people are just, standard jobs making minimum to medium wage or whatever it is. You can still buy a house. It is affordable on almost any budget if you just understand the rules. And so that's what I do. I try to help people understand that homeownership is of true value and can bring wealth. And if you're willing to make some little sacrifices and just, maybe live a little further away or in a smaller house or maybe with a roommate or two, like you can use those things to your advantage to help make you real money and real wealth in the future. So, for those of you that are still thinking about homeownership and wondering if it's gonna be worth it and you should just keep renting and all that stuff, I can promise you it's worth it. Short shake. If you need a little bit of hand-holding, need a little bit of help when it comes to homeownership and how to navigate the process, that's what I'm here for. Hit me up today. I got tons of different ways to get in contact with me. You can hit me up on my website, fill out a quick inquiry form. That way you can just get in touch with me, even if it's just a few questions. Maybe you're not ready to apply or you don't think you're ready to get a home or a house or a loan today. That's okay. If you know you want one in the future, let's get the conversation started. It doesn't take near as long as you think, and it's nowhere near as big of a headache as most people think that it is. It's a lot easier than you might think. And there's so many different naysayers for all kinds of different reasons. Don't just assume that it's not affordable and you can't make it happen. There are so many different options out there, and that's what me and my team do. I primarily help first-time homebuyers, first-time investors. But if you're wanting to get into investing, you need to own that first home first. That's one of the biggest steps. And so honestly, if you're thinking about it, you're ready, but you don't know where to start or what steps are next, spill it everywhere. Give me a call today and we can make it happen. Homeownership is not dead. The dream of homeownership is not dead. You can become a homeowner if you just know where to start and how to get things going. Right here, I'm your guy. Give me a call, let's make it happen. Cheers.